Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Crown and today we are going to have some more stories that I hope that you will enjoy. But before we start, it would be so much appreciated if you would subscribe to the channel, like the video if you enjoyed it, and maybe leave a comment down below. These simple clicks would mean a lot to the future of this channel and really reward the effort that I put in every day. And now, without further ado, let's go! So I was heading home from a vacation in North Carolina. A long story short, this Karen, we'll call her Karen, is speeding at an intersection and ends up hitting my car, which completely flips it over. I end up having to be pulled from the sunroof of my car. Good I have one. Because with a broken leg I couldn't really get out myself. Karen's freak out starts when I'm literally getting glass pulled out of my arm. Karen dramatically throws herself from her car and starts screaming in pain and cursing at me while holding her leg and rolling around. But as soon as a paramedic notices her, she magically stops wailing. After a brief examination, the paramedic simply tells her, "You are fine." Karen immediately starts to argue, but after she realizes her defeat, she storms over to me in a huff. Mind you, I'm still getting glass out of my arm, and the conversation went kinda like this.
"You hit my car and ruined my kid's day."
Her kids weren't even in the car with her.
"What do you have to say for yourself?"
I did?
"Yeah, and you ruined it too."
The only damage I did to her car was a dent across the front of the car, meanwhile mine was totaled. The paramedic tells her, "Ma'am, could you please leave her alone? The officers will talk to you in a bit and you can tell them there." I tell her, "And you've already proven to be delusional from your little broken leg stunt."
"Delusional? You're the one faking it. I'm the victim here."
Karen then decides it's a good idea to pull me out of the chair and get me to stand on my broken leg with no warning whatsoever. Of course, as soon as she lets go of my wrist, I stumble back, fall on my chair and hit my head on the pavement. I am really not sure what happened next since I was dazed from bashing my head on the pavement. But because of all the yelling,
"Put my kids in. I'm suing all of you."
I'm pretty sure she was arrested on the count of assault. I was brought to the hospital and I ended up spending 2 extra days in North Carolina because I couldn't drive due to my broken leg and concussion and had to be picked by a friend or co-worker. I'm currently working with my lawyer on pressing charges, and I will let you know as soon everything settles down. Back in my army days, I was once in command of a unit of about 80 soldiers in Hawaii. Most of the soldiers in my command were great people, happy to do their jobs and take home a paycheck. Hard workers, creative, adaptable to unusual army conditions, and generally reliable. But there was one who was troubled from the start. Gentle reader, meet Private Wiggles. My first awareness of Wiggles came 2 or 3 days after I'd taken over the command of the unit. When I was told Wiggles might not be able to go as she just had an outpatient medical procedure, departure is about a week away and I have to validate the personnel roster to make sure we've got logistical support for everyone we're bringing, transportation, food, lodging, and so on. Wiggles says it's not a problem, she can handle it. We got to Thailand and set up camp on a Thai army base. 2 days in, and the medical section sends a runner to find me. Wiggles is at our medical clinic, laid out with extreme abdominal pain. I cruise over to the clinic tent and the physician assessed on duty tells me a couple things. Wiggles got diagnosed with the single worst case of pelvic inflammatory disease he's ever seen. PID can be treated with high-dose antibiotics, which the PA has on hand. Not a problem, we've got this covered. Wiggles is released to Sergeant Deb, her section sergeant, who will make sure Wiggles takes her antibiotics and keeps an eye on her for any further issues. Sergeant Deb finds me and First Sergeant Bob about a day later and tells me 2 more things about Wiggles. She's refusing to take her antibiotics, and she wants to get out of the army. I again talk with Wiggles. "So you want out of the army? You know you have a couple years left on your contract, right?" "I know, but I'm just done being a soldier and I want to be out of the army." Okay, I can make that happen. You don't want to be here, then I don't want you here either. But here is the deal. You gotta play by the rules. I can get you out with an honorable discharge, and I'll start the paperwork as soon as we're back in Hawaii. But you need to take your antibiotics, do your job, and be where you're supposed to be. You do your part and I'll do my part for you, sounds good? Yeah, I can do that. Spoiler alert, she could not do that. For the first of the Thailand exercise, Sergeant Deb had to take control of Wiggles' meds and force her to take them, when she could actually find Wiggles, who consistently found someplace else to be. At one point in the next week or so, she accuses First Sergeant Bob of assaulting her, easily disapproved as he doesn't have her infection. She was just trying to stir up trouble with wild accusations, I guess. We get back to Hawaii and I start the process to get her out of the army, because as much as she's been a handful of trouble in Thailand, I'm thinking it's still easier at this point to kick her to the curb than it is to keep her around and punish her before kicking her out. I was wrong. Even as I start to work on her discharge, she ramps up the stupidity. Here are a few examples. Wiggles gets caught drinking, only 19 years old. Wiggles and her husband lie on the on-base housing office and provide forged authorization documents to get into rent-free on-base housing that they didn't qualify for. Wiggles refused to show up for work or any unit formation and cannot be found anywhere for days. And here is a weird one. I get a call from a temp agency asking me if it's okay for Wiggles to continue working through them as an administrative assistant for clients in town. Not uncommon for soldiers to have a second job, but with everything else she was up to at that time, this one just had me going, what the hell. There is more though, but you get the idea. At this point, Wiggles' actions are egregious enough that I can no longer just kick her out with an honorable discharge. I put her on notice that she's at risk for a court-martial. I thought that threat might keep her in line, but she just couldn't seem to stop herself from getting stupider and stupider. It is the old 80-20 problem. 80% of your time is spent dealing with the 20% of your folks who are troublemakers. At this point, I'm wasting a not insignificant amount of time dealing with Wiggles' issues almost daily. I had genuinely and in good faith offered her the easy pass, but I guess she figured she'd try to burn the place down on the way out, since she apparently thought she was getting what she wanted no matter what she did. I was reminded of what my old platoon sergeant used to say when I was coming up through the ranks. You want to get stupid? Go ahead. But I can get stupider. Cue the revenge. She's causing me daily headaches, so I'm going to bring the pain back to her. Honorable discharge paperwork is out the window, and I lean into the special court-martial process instead. My legal counsel tells me that Wiggles' activities are likely to get her a couple of weeks confinement at most, maybe not even that. She may get a monetary fine, and she'll probably get an other than honorable discharge. Potential for a bad conduct discharge, which are worse. But while her actions have been not that good, they are also not that bad. I am rational enough to understand that. I have a brief chat with Captain Morgan, Wiggles' military defense attorney, about where I'm going with this case. During our chat, I try to be a gentleman and let him know that Wiggles is going to be trouble for him if he's not careful. He gives me a condescending, "This isn't my first rodeo, baka. I'm a big boy and can take care of myself." Fair enough, I tried to warn you. Normally, a soldier getting a special court-martial for piddly crap might get confined to the barracks, restricted to their on-base quarters, or something similar for the duration of the process. It's not like she killed someone, right? However, my military legal counsel drops this little gem in my ear. He tells me Wiggles has met all 5 of the conditions, danger to others, flight risk and so on, required by military law, Uniform Code for Military Justice, to warrant requesting confinement prior to her trial. He tells me if you can remember these 5 conditions and elaborates on the details at our next pre-trial meeting with the military magistrate, you might be able to get her confined to the Navy brig at Ford Island until the trial. I'm a guy who likes to pay attention to sound legal advice, so I do just as he says. A couple days later we went in for the pre-trial meeting, and I ran down the list for the magistrate. Boom. Magistrate orders Wiggles to be confined in the brig through the trial. First Sergeant Bob and Platoon Sergeant Maggie got to pick her up from her own base housing. She won't open the door, but they know she's inside because they can clearly hear her and Mr. Wiggles banging away. This is important for later. The Wiggles finish up, she takes her time getting showered and dressed, and finally comes to the door, when it pleases her, and off she goes to the brig. The pre-trial process takes up the next 4 weeks. During that time, I have to deal with CPT Morgan, the paralegals in his office, and various fun things to do with her pending court-martial. Other than that, it's blissfully peaceful. Wiggles chills in the brig for 4 weeks. Seriously chills. Every time I had to visit, it was freezing in there. I'm required to make weekly welfare visits to see if she's being mistreated, if she has any needs that aren't being met, and so on. Seems weird, but as her commander, I'm still responsible to make sure the brig staff aren't mistreating my soldier. Other goings-on in this time period. Mr. Wiggles fraudulently applies for a car loan and gets a van in their names. Mr. Wiggles is dishonorably discharged and kicked off the island, flies home to wherever the hell he originally enlisted from. CPT Morgan asks me to consider an other than honorable discharge and time served in lieu of taking things all the way to trial. I am hot to get that pound of flesh from her, but my legal counsel advises me to avoid the court-martial and just kick Wiggles out with the other than honorable discharge. After all, he says she's already been locked up for almost 3 weeks, so the magistrate will probably just give her time served and the other than honorable anyway. See my earlier comment about sound legal advice. My boss, Lieutenant Colonel Ryan, thinks that I'm too invested in this case, that I'm no longer objective. Lieutenant Colonel Ryan insists on coming with me to the brig for the next welfare visit. This is 3 weeks into Wiggles' stay into those luxurious accommodations. Among other lines she throws at us, Wiggles tells us that she needs to see the dentist about a filling that's given her trouble. And Motrin just isn't working. At the end of the visit, Lieutenant Colonel Ryan tells the guards about Wiggles' filling, asks if they can give her anything stronger than Motrin, then instructs them to follow up with a dentist. Guard actually laughs out loud at this and says, "No sir, Motrin is the best we can do in the brig." And that other thing? For the last 2 weeks she's been telling anyone with ears that she wants to try getting her wisdom teeth pulled before she's kicked out. She doesn't have any problem with any fillings. It was hilarious to watch the Lieutenant Colonel Ryan's face go from obvious concern for Wiggles' well-being to outright fury. And the next words out of his mouth were, "That witch lied to me?" I make arrangements with CPT Morgan to accept his request for time served with other than honorable in lieu of court-martial. Sometime later that week I get a call from the brig. Wiggles is pregnant. Remember the scene at her house 4 weeks prior? And they can't keep her confined anymore because of it. She has to be released back to her unit until the court-martial or other actions are complete. CPT Morgan stakes his reputation on Wiggles being a good girl until we can send her back home to California. He'll come to regret that, and he can't say I didn't warn him. We get Wiggles back from her 4-week all-inclusive stay in the brig. I've accepted Captain Morgan's request to avoid the court-martial, and I confine Wiggles to the barracks under supervision for the 9 days she has left until her flight to California. Immediately, we have another crazy show. Wiggles is smoking in the barracks. Not a big deal that she's smoking, it's just not allowed inside the barracks rooms. Wiggles is caught with a bottle of liquor in her barracks room. She's still only 19. Wiggles slips out of the barracks and runs off for a day when her platoon sergeant gets distracted from supervising her. First Sergeant Bob and Lieutenant Ricky, the executive officer, go to collect Wiggles' belongings from her on-base housing so we can box it up and ship it to her home. They find that Mr. Wiggles has left behind a bunch of stuff he stole from the other soldiers body armor, military equipment, and some ammunition, smoke grenades, and explosive that he stole during trips to the range. All lined up right inside the front door where it's impossible to miss. They call me asking what to do. I tell them just collect it all, return the equipment to the central issue facility, and dump the ammo and explosive in the nearest amnesty box. Mr. Wiggles obviously meant for Wiggles to take the fall for having it. Husband of the year. If we take that bait, Wiggles will be here forever. I don't want that, do you? Lieutenant Ricky answers, nope, I don't want that either. It'll be like it never happened. In light of all this drama, I bring Wiggles into my office to remind her of her arrangement to be a good girl till she leaves this island, with Lieutenant Ricky as a witness. I tell her, Wiggles, you are in violation of your release agreement from the brig. You've been sneaking out of the barracks. You've been smoking and drinking.
Yeah, and doing all kinds of drugs too.
Heavy sarcasm voice. Be that as it may, I'm giving you fair warning that you're at risk of losing the deal I made with CPT Morgan. Additionally, you're pregnant again. I am not sure if you're aware of it, but most damage to a fetus from alcohol and smoking will come in the first few weeks after conception. I do not know if you're planning to keep this one or not, but at this rate you're going, this baby's going to be born dumber than you. And Wiggles was gaping like a fish. Wiggles then pulls out of my office and runs down to the Colonel Ryan's office at the other end of the building to squeal on me for insulting her. Lieutenant Ricky hot on her heels. She tries to rush into the Colonel office, but Lieutenant Ricky gets in first and fills him in. Ricky tells me later how it went down. Wiggles is yelling about how I called her stupid. Strangely vanilla thing to focus on considering everything she's done. But you do you. And that she's been mistreated. Colonel Ryan yells at his admin to get CPT Morgan on the phone now. He reams CPT Morgan for his client's jackassery. Tells him to fix this and makes various threats to CPT Morgan's career. About a half hour later, I get a call from CPT Morgan. He says, I can't believe the words I'm hearing from Wiggles. I'm shocked that you would use language like that and call her names. Side note, my mom is an attorney, and I grew up knowing that I'm shocked, appalled, and dismayed. It is what they said when they didn't have a good argument. So as soon as I hear the word shocked, I know I own him and immediately cut in. And I bet you're appalled and dismayed too. He stumbles and sounds slightly confused.
Well, yes, of course I am. You cannot talk to soldiers like that. I know of a lieutenant colonel, a commander, who called one of her soldiers stupid, and she's no longer in command now.
I didn't call her stupid. I informed her of basic biological facts. Not my problem if she takes the news poorly. And arguably, she's not all that smart. Anyway, you called me and I'm pretty sure it wasn't to warn me about what I said to Wiggles. So what do you want?
What will it take to prevent you from kicking back our deal?
You could get her on a plane tomorrow.
How about if I get her out of here by Friday?
It was Wednesday, and she was due to fly out the following Wednesday. I don't think you can manage that, but good on you if you do. To his credit, CPT Morgan gets Wiggles a flight for Sunday. 3 days early, I print up official orders appointing Lieutenant Ricky as a military escort specifically for her. Lieutenant Ricky drives her to the airport and the airline desk agent calls me to verify his status. When they get to the check-in counter, they give him a special pass to get through security with her. He stays with her at the gate to make sure she gets on and stays on the plane. Then stays at the gate until the plane is in the air. Some boogers are hard to flick. We wanted to make damn sure this one landed someplace else. About a month later, I got a call from the military police about a derelict van in a parking lot with all 4 tires slashed. Guess who that belonged to? It's really kinda sad when I look back on it. I had 2 other soldiers come to me at different points asking to get out of the military ahead of their contracts. They played by the rules and I got both of them out with honorable discharges and all the benefits. They even qualified for unemployment. Too easy. Wiggles could have had the same treatment. I told her exactly what I could do for her, then had to shift gears and told her exactly what I was going to do to her. Then I did. That dumb jerk. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.